Oh, welcome back. Yep, welcome back to Cover Your Assets with Todd Rooker, Craig Nestor, and Jason Walgrave, and you, 855-835-8500 or online, coveryourassets21.com. And you can come back from bankruptcy, huh?
Well, David, I wanted to steer back into something that we touched on a little bit earlier. The common mistake that I see the most is when I'm talking to someone about loan modification or about short sale or about bankruptcy, and they let me know they already filed, but they did not include the first and second mortgage in the bankruptcy because they wanted to keep their house. And now that second mortgage is out there, and it's a very dangerous thing for people. Does that happen when people come, and how do we work with that second mortgage more effectively?
Well, I do have clients that have come to see me specifically because they have liability on a second mortgage for a house that's been foreclosed on, and the first lien holder, of course, took the property back. The second is suing them on the note. I think what you're kind of looking at as far as the defense and people that want to stay in their house, if this is a property you actually live in, it's not an investment property or something like that, there is some beauty to the fact that while there may be a first and second mortgage on there, if you go through a bankruptcy and if you don't reaffirm, which is a formal process in the bankruptcy court where you're basically signing back on a dotted line saying, I am personally responsible and I'm guaranteeing this debt again, if they don't do that, then the mortgages, as far as they're concerned, is no longer exist as far as their personal liability to pay. It still secures the lender as far as the collateral goes, but let's say something happened, ultimately they couldn't stay in the house, they would walk away, they wouldn't owe a dime on that second mortgage.
Yep. So essentially the idea, imagine if a person has a $300,000 first mortgage and a $100,000 second mortgage, and the home is currently worth $280,000. If there's actually an equity position, chances are of any sort, meaning over $300,000, they may not allow a person to discharge that debt. But regardless, the reality is if they discharge the debt, they no longer have a legal obligation to repay the debt. They're not a guarantor on that financial obligation. But as David had said, look, the lien, the second position mortgage, is still against the property and is still collateralized against the property. Whether the property actually is valuable enough to give any money towards a second mortgage, if that property should be sold in a foreclosure or short sale or what have you. Having said that, if a person discharges the debt, they no longer can be pursued for that debt. They can't call them. They can't come after them in any way, shape, or form. The only thing that the second mortgage company has the ability to do is to foreclose to try to redeem themselves financially. Now, if there's equity to justify doing that, they're going to have to buy out that first position unless it's a first and second mortgage that's the same company and they're cross-collateralized, or they request that the court consolidate the two loans. If they don't do that, then imagine that if Citi Mortgage, as an example, is your second position at $100,000 and Bank of America is your first position at $300,000, Citi Mortgage is going to have to buy out a $300,000 loan on a home whose value is now only worth $280,000 so they can foreclose, which is a year-long process. They're going to lose money, no performance on the investment. It ain't going to happen. So what happens essentially is the person is able to go on making the payment on the first, doesn't make the payment on the second. Now, at some point, might the value of that house come back, and now it does make sense for that second position lien to buy out the first position and foreclose from that position. It can, but I don't know about you, but I don't feel that the real estate market is going to come screaming back anytime soon. And it still leaves the opportunity open to go to that second mortgage position to negotiate, not to get a person off the hook for the debt because they've discharged the financial obligation. They don't have to repay the debt, but simply for the second mortgage company to release its lien against the property. And for 10 cents, 20, 30 cents on the dollar, you could probably do that at a point where you're financially strong enough to be able to do so. And given the real estate market, you probably got a few years to be able to do that. So it is a tremendous opportunity, and that's why bankruptcy can be such a strong mechanism to stay in your home. Somebody says to me, I got to do a short sale, I have no choice. And I say, really? If you short sale your house, you're still going to have your $90,000 in credit card debt. What if we could strip out your second mortgage, lower your first mortgage payment, possibly with a loan modification using Craig and his strategies to do that, and then all we'd have was a first mortgage with a lower payment than you currently have, no second mortgage to repay, and no credit card debt. Would you still want to short sale your home? Oh, my God, can you do that? Yes, you can do that, potentially. Now, it depends on the house, depends on the equity position, depends on a lot of other factors. But in some cases, is that a doable proposition? It can be.
Absolutely. Coming back to the second mortgage, so what we're saying is that a bankruptcy, it's possible where they won't have their hooks in you. So they can't lien, levy, garnish your wages, but they may still have their hooks in the property.
They will, yeah.
So having said that, but they can't do anything about it right now. The second mortgage can't foreclose now. But at some point in the future, they could. Todd, what are the chances 2-3 years from now that second mortgage company still even owns that debt?
Well, that's an interesting question, and chances are a lot of these assets are being sold to other companies who are buying them for cents on the dollar, and I mean really cents on the dollar.
Somebody's going to own it.
Yeah, somebody's going to own it, and they're going to come after it. And don't think for a moment that doesn't mean that these junior liens aren't going to rattle the chain and scare the crap out of the homeowner, because after the bankruptcy, oftentimes, and David can speak to this, and sometimes they do it even within the bankruptcy after the creditor meeting, they'll ask for a release of stay to allow them to talk to the homeowner to try to work out a solution. Well, when they do that, it opens the door. Now, they're not supposed to be pursuing the debt. They're supposed to be simply talking to the person, but they will put forth paperwork that will scare the crap out of the homeowner and make them believe that they are foreclosing from second position. And so, you have to be aware that this is coming, because junior liens are real sick and tired of being pushed around and not being paid. So they're going to do anything they can to get the homeowner to believe that they can, that they can come after them. The reality is, how often do I see it happen? Like almost never.
Okay, back up just a little bit, because you're talking about people that have firsts and seconds on their homes, and there's a lot of people right now that are underwater, and they might be considering getting some advice from the team. Just out of curiosity, at what point during this conversation and trying to decide about bankruptcy, do you qualify? What's the best thing? When does the short sale discussion come into play? Is it before the bankruptcy? After? How does that fit in, you guys?
The short sale is all about what the homeowner wants. If their primary objective is to keep that home beyond all else, then we've got to look at every option, including bankruptcy, as a mechanism to keep them in that house, if that's what they want to do. And the thing that often determines that is, if we can get this home to, if a person looks at the current home that they're in and that home is not affordable, then the question becomes, what would be the alternative if they went elsewhere, and what's the contrast in cost? If their current mortgage is $3,000 a month and they can rent for $1,500 a month, even when you consider the tax benefit of being a homeowner, walking away from that home makes a whole lot of sense, because they're going to be able to increase their cash flow position so much more significantly. Having said that, what if the home that they're in, with the tax benefit, let's say they've got a $6,000 tax refund that would otherwise not be there, and if you divide that by 12, that's $500 a month. If their current mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, and they've looked at rentals and it's $1,500 a month, well, they've accomplished nothing. They're in the same position. Then it isn't about the house anymore. Then it's about, they just don't make enough money. So we have to look at all of those things. But there's also instances where a house may have challenges, lots of work that needs to be done. And even though the home may be affordable, they simply don't have the money to be able to fix these things, and they have to do a short sale in that regard. So it's always about whether they want to keep the home or not keep the home. And a short sale is a great alternative to moving away, because foreclosure in mortgage underwriting guidelines can take 5 to 7 years, where in short sale you can qualify for mortgage financing within 2 to 3 years. So there's a big contrast and difference. Bankruptcy and short sale are consistent. In 2 to 3 years from the discharge date, you can get good mortgage financing with good interest rates. Foreclosure's 5 to 7 years. So if I can do a short sale and maybe even a bankruptcy if I need to, but not have to go through foreclosure, I can recover on the other side more readily. And a short sale may be a great alternative to doing that.
And the timing, I guess, really depends on so many things, what you want, what options are available. So it's the big key is getting advice, and from not just one source, right, Craig?
Well, I think when we use bankruptcy, it's sometimes before or after a loan mod. Sometimes we want the debt to qualify for the loan mod, and sometimes we can't have the debt to qualify for the loan mod. And sometimes we know sooner or later we're going to have to pull this trigger. Let's use it strategically to buy more time in the house, so that the family can go out there and get themselves employed and get into a position where they can qualify for a loan mod. So every single scenario is completely different. And I think, David, your analogy of the snowflake is, from a distance, it all looks kind of blurry, but when they're up close, it's all very different.
Very unique propositions. And so cover your assets, guys. This is what this show is really about. Every week we come in here and we talk about, some pretty intense situations that consumers are going through. But we've got 3 experts sitting here at the table. Craig, you in foreclosure defense, Todd Rooker, financial expertise extraordinaire, and then also Jason and Derek Walgrave with the short sales and the investment property specialists. This is a big deal. You guys are tapping into, audience-wise, a huge amount of knowledge. CoverYourAssets21.com for what?
The Financial Crisis Bible.
And that's your takeaway.
Yeah, man.
That's your takeaway.
Yeah.
And the team will come and speak to you at your business, possibly at your church. Join us there at coveryourassets21.com. You can contact us there, download the Financial Crisis Bible, and learn a lot about how to make it in the new now. Right, Craig?
See you at the fair.
Yes.
I appreciate being here today. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for having
Kingsbury.
you, David.